Thanks a million, folks. Pretty hard act to follow. Fintan O'Toole, the man who was one of the key figures who, I would say, involved me in social democracy from a young age when I was reading around and trying to figure out the ground that Fintan spoke about, and the fact that some of us just seem to be on different ground than so many other of us. As a young person growing up in inner city Dublin, it just never sat right with me. Never made sense to me why there was such a huge gap between those who have and those who have not, and I was always into those who have nots. And it just, the sense of injustice that I felt all the way through, I didn't have the political outlet where I came from. It wasn't a very area where politicians knocked on doors or where people tried to energize you into branches. So a lot of the time, some of the social unrest we see in areas such as the one I came from is the frustration. It's the frustration of people seeing that uneven ground and the feeling that, there's something wrong here, but I don't know what it is, and I'm not sure how I can fix it. So instead of getting actively involved in what we're trying to achieve here today, they lash out in other ways. And I found myself lashing out, but I lashed out by trying to figure out what the problem was and how I could go about solving it. And certainly Fintan would have been instrumental in some of the stuff I was reading, and Pettit, that he mentioned as well, would have had a big influence on my life. You can't live with and you can't face down the inequality that's in our society every day without feeling that something has to change. You have to feel compelled to try and change things. The more we change, the more we say the same, has been the catchphrase in Ireland. We've gone through 100 years this year of various different incarnations of politics. But really, were there various different incarnations? There's Tweedledum, and there's Tweedledee, and then there's Tweedle in between. We've never had anything that has made a significant impact on Irish political or social life, for that matter. I started reading The Spirit Level. It's a book that was to UK academics, and it suddenly became very clear to me that, you might have the nice house in Foxrock or Castleknock or wherever it is, and forget about the people who are living on the lower ground that Fintan spoke about. But actually, can you really forget about them? You can't, because as The Spirit Level and myriad other academic pieces will show you, the better society as a whole performs, the better everyone does. So the societies that tend to put equality to the core, they're the ones who do better, and they do better across the board. They've got better educational outcomes, they've got better social outcomes, they've got lower crime levels, people are happier, and actually life expectancy is higher in a lot of those areas. We just never seem to get it right. We go through this boom and bust and election cycle to election cycle. We switch between Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, a little bit of Labour here and there sprinkled in for good measure. But we've never, as Fintan said, we've never had social democracy. And that is why the gap between the haves and the have-nots in our society continues to widen. And to my mind has widened to what is now catastrophic levels. Then you look across at the Nordic countries and you think, hang on a second, they're not, all that much bigger than us. They're not that all different to us, but yet they've managed to get this right. And they've managed to do it for many, many years. And yet we keep making the same mistakes that we've been making for years. Why is nobody saying, hang on a second, why can't we do what they're doing? You start looking around at things and you realize, why social democracy? Why not social democracy? Why anything else but social democracy? If you want to level the playing field, it really is the only option out there to try and level that playing field. For me, the key thing that attracted me to it was the universalism of it. It wasn't the, I've done all right out of life, or I've been one of the lucky ones from the background I come from, or it wasn't pull the ladder up and sod the rest. It was like, actually, do you know what? I'll do a hell of a lot better if my brothers and sisters across the country are doing better as well. It just made such sense to me, and I couldn't understand why we weren't embracing it. There seemed to be a selfishness in our politics. It was like, if I'm doing okay, I don't need to worry about the rest. We weren't seeing the impacts. We weren't seeing the fact that, people on trolleys across our emergency departments has a massive impact on all of us, whether you can afford private health insurance or not. If you have an overcrowded, cramped, disastrous, chaotic health system, nobody's benefiting in the long run. So I started looking around and trying to read things. Look at Sweden. Sweden is a phenomenal example of how social democracy has worked spectacularly well. It has had a social democratic-led government for 69 of the last 86 years. Not just electoral success, but policy success as well. And I think in Ireland, far too often, we focus on electoral success. It's whether Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael can lurch from the next election. We don't look at the long-term vision. We don't look at the policies we put in place to see where they're going to bring us and how they're going to get us there. France is starting to move towards social democracy in a much bigger way. The childcare model is one that I draw particular attention to. Specifically, if we look at it in the context of gender equality, France has over 80% of its females involved in the workforce. That's phenomenal. We don't here in Ireland. Why? Because here you have a choice between your career or your child. It's very hard to find a financial balance. I was canvassing one night and I had a lady on the door who was a senior engineer telling me that she was paying €1,850 a month for childcare. And she said that no matter how much she tried, she couldn't convince her boss that she was the one that should be in line for the promotion, because at the end of the day, she had to be out at 6 o'clock to pick up the kids from childcare. We do not facilitate women, in particular women, and sometimes it's men, but the childcare in this country is a serious issue, and it's a real precursor of equality that we need to be addressing. Equality is an issue that's obviously to the fore of social democracy, and I think I would imagine that everybody in the room here today shares my fears about the Trump election, the repercussions of Brexit. I read a piece last night about how at a high school football game in America, some of the guys were chanting at the Hispanics on the field to go build a wall. And that's the danger of what seems to be or can often be dismissed as throwaway rhetoric. It's not throwaway rhetoric. I don't believe for a second that all those guys at that football pitch chanting that are racist. I just believe that they're misled and they're listening to things and it becomes the norm. And it's very important for us to challenge that. And I think the equality that social democracy provides is a really good mechanism for us to challenge that. We have a great multicultural, diverse, increasingly ethnic population here in Ireland. And I think we, hopefully, as we grow our numbers, will embrace that new Ireland and welcome people into the political system so that we have voices that we've never had before and that we can be representative. So when people ask me why social democracy and why Ireland needs social democracy, I say to you, why not social democracy? Why not better outcomes for all of us, not just the chosen few? Why not more equality? Why not indeed? Thank you.